and like register this device. I got to go and take it down to this place. I got to pay them a fee. I got to do all this, you know. And so instead they just chuck it in the bin. All right, so this week we're going to talk about something that is, you know, whether you're a business owner, you're an individual, anyone who's ever owned an electronic device has come across this problem. Maybe you didn't see it as a problem before. Maybe you'll see it as a problem after listening to this podcast. But when you're done with your old electronic device, your laptop stops working, you upgrade it, you get something better. What do you do with it? Do you chuck that thing in the trash can? You know, there's probably a lot of caveats to this too. But let's just get the conversation rolling right there. Travis, what are some of the main things you got to keep in mind when it's time to get rid of your old electronic devices?
Yeah, important question, because we all have electronic devices, and most of us probably, I know I have, throw them in the trash, right? Hey, we're done. They don't work anymore. We don't need them. So we just throw them in the garbage, right? We shouldn't be doing that. So e-waste is a real problem. And you know, there's a lot of resources that are mined up out of the earth that are limited, kind of scarce resources, and they're pretty destructive to harvest. And they're also pretty toxic, many of them, right? And throwing them in a landfill is actually against the law for the most part, right? So it's actually, you got to check your own local laws, but I know here in Colorado Springs, you are not supposed to take a computer or a television or a stereo, like, you know, an old piece of stereo equipment, and throw it in the garbage, because then it goes into a landfill. And then it rains and the water gets on top of the lithium, or you know, if there's mercury or lead or any of those, you know, types of metals in that device, then eventually makes its way into the groundwater, and it's toxic. So you're supposed to recycle them. And then you might think, well, do I just throw it in that little recycling bin I have with like my glass and my paper? And the answer is no. There's actual businesses that are dedicated to recycling equipment. And so the first thing you need to do is find out who it is in my area that recycles this equipment, and, you know, what's it going to cost, what's going to take to have them handle this for me.
Okay, so that opens up a lot of other questions. So first of all, we know that most of us have broken the law unknowingly at some point in time. If just throwing our electronic devices in the trash. But what if you're a business and some of the and say like you've upgraded all of your employees' laptops, and some of the information that your business holds is sensitive. What do you do now? Because I'm sure that might make a difference in who you choose to do your recycling, right?
Absolutely. So healthcare, you know, financial services, if you're dealing with things with regards to defense, you know, there are different verticals where obviously the information on those hard drives is very sensitive, and you want to make sure that it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. So secure destruction is an option through a lot of recyclers. You can pay an actual secure destruction fee, where they will shred the hard drive and then give you back a receipt that says, hey, this was actually shredded and destroyed. Here's the serial number. You can file that away and keep it on hand in case you ever get audited and need to produce that information. It also shifts the liability off of you onto this recycler. And really, that's what it's doing more than anything. You know, you hope that these recyclers you're working with are doing what they're saying they're doing, and for the most part they are, and you should investigate them. But the big takeaway from a business liability standpoint is you have been responsible with this information you have, or this, you know, hard drive. You've given it to a recycler. The recycler, you've given it to a recycler, and they are, you know, attesting that they have. Is attesting the word? It's like attestation, right? Is a test? I gotta start this over again. You are giving this hard drive. Attesting. Testing 1 2. Let me try this again. You're giving this hard drive to the recycler, and they're stating we did in fact destroy this, and so they're taking on that liability themselves, that it was handled that way. Now, a couple considerations: if you have solid state drives, destroying the drive may not always be enough. It depends on, again, what industry you're in, if there's any regulations or compliance you have to deal with. So you might want to encrypt the drive first or zero it out. There's also software that can do this. D-band's a good one for spinning drives that people know about. It's free and it's open source. There's a bunch. I don't want to go through the whole list because there's 30 or 40 of these, but you may want to use a free open source tool or a paid tool to first zero out the drive a couple times, write some zeros, write some ones, really nuke the data that's on there. Again, another good strategy is encrypt the drive and throw away the key and then have it shredded. That way, if anybody's able to recover somehow the chips or intercept it, they're really not going to be able to get into it for now. I say for now until, everybody's worried about quantum computing, but I won't go down that rabbit hole. The point is, for now, that's good enough, right? But that would be my recommendation. Have it securely destroyed.
We'll save that for another podcast.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to talk about that at some point. But yeah, get that receipt, keep that on hand, and then you've done your due diligence. You've actually been responsible with that data. The only other thing I'll add to that is, in certain circumstances, you may need to make sure that you've got a good record of chain of custody. But for the average consumer and business owner, pull that hard drive out, get it recycled, get a receipt, you're good.
And I'm kind of flipping back over to the consumer side now. Is this something that's difficult to do? Because I'd imagine that that's something that would probably stop people from doing it correctly. If it's like, oh man, I got to go and like register this device. I got to go and take it down to this place. I got to pay them a fee. I got to do all this, and so instead they just chuck it in the bin. So whether it's an individual or a business, but, especially if you're just, average Joe, whoever, and you have your old laptop, you want to get rid of this thing. You may think, if I take this down to some place, I got to register, I got to pay for it. It's going to take time. It's going to take money and resources. So I guess the question is, who can do this? Is this a difficult process? Who's available to do recycling? Are there?
So yeah, a lot of places that you've heard of before. So Goodwill, you can take your electronics down to the Goodwill, and they'll take them from you. You can take computers to them if they're working or not. They'll take them if they can repurpose them and sell them to somebody else. They will, and then they'll make a little bit of money doing that. If they can't, they'll have them recycled. I will note that Goodwill does say on their website, don't bring down televisions. They won't accept TVs working or not working. But other than that, they absolutely will let you bring your equipment down to them. In fact, we got a link here we can put maybe in the description for some of these different places as we go through them. But they say they'll take computers, electronics, no televisions. But, they've got a whole list of donation guidelines on their website of what you can and cannot bring to them. In addition to that, another place you can go, believe it or not, is Best Buy. Best Buy will take equipment from you, which I found, surprising when I was doing research on this. They actually have a recycling program, and it's all of their stores. Every Best Buy store will let you bring equipment to them. They do have limits on how much you can bring in. In fact, I'm pulling it up right now. I believe it's 3 employees can accept up to 3 qualified recycled items per day per household. So actually quite a bit. You'd have to break it up. If you had, a lot of things to bring down, you can only do 3 per person. But they absolutely will accept that recycling. And they can also perform secure destruction of your hard drive there at Best Buy. So if you want to go down and you need to have that drive destroyed securely and you need a receipt that has happened, they can take care of that. In addition to, I want to point this out too, just because people at home may find this interesting. Apparently Best Buy has a whole recycling program that allow them to even pick up large appliances. They do charge, but they'll go out and pick those up too and recycle those for you. So I thought that was kind of good to know. But after the 2 that you're familiar with, right, donating to Goodwill and Best Buy, if you're a business, I don't think, I wouldn't recommend going there, right? And the reason is you probably have a lot of equipment you need to recycle all at once. You're not just taking down 1 or 2 machines at a time. you probably need that secure destruction receipt for your hard drive. So in that case, you should look for e-waste recyclers in your area. So grab your favorite search engine, Google, DuckDuckGo, whatever it is, and type in e-waste recyclers in my area, and you'll come back with different results. Here we have a handful. Blue Star is one that everybody's really familiar with, but there's several here in town. And you can actually have a couple different things. You can go to them and drop off your e-waste and have them recycle it. And they will charge you by the pound for what you're dropping off. Or if you have a lot of equipment, you can have them come pick it up for you. Or like in our case, we have a bin in the back that they actually supplied us because we do this so often. And they'll come out, pick up that bin, they'll weigh it, they'll give us an invoice for it. And also, if we need any secure destruction receipts from any of the hard drives, we can get that at that time from them as well. The last thing I'm going to say is if you're working with a managed services provider, sometimes they'll take care of this, sort of as the middleman on your behalf. So in our case, when we replace systems, we ask, what do you want done with the old system? Do you want it recycled, or are you going to hang on to it? And do you need secure destruction of your hard drive? If they say yes to both those things, we take care of it for them. We drop it off to our recycler. We get a bulk rate from them. We mark it up slightly so that it covers our costs for dealing with this, and we charge it back to the customer, and they don't have to worry about it. It's just part of our process of upgrading and replacing their machines as part of their lifecycle management.
That brings up a good point that you mentioned, cost. Now, obviously, as a business who's dropping off large amounts, and you have to go through one of these other companies, then there's, like you mentioned, there's usually a cost associated with it. But a couple of the ones that you mentioned before, like Goodwill and Best Buy, are there costs associated with that? If you're just an individual person, you want to drop your old phone or your old laptop off, is there a cost associated with that?
If it qualifies. Again, if you want that secure destruction of the hard drive, they'll charge for that at Best Buy. Goodwill's not going to do that. But the big thing is they're going to put a limit, again, on the amount of stuff you can bring down. And they're also going to limit more harshly what you can bring down, right? So for a business, those are not necessarily the most practical option. I mean, if you've got one machine or two, though, you could definitely go down there and go that route and save a couple of dollars. But for most businesses, the convenience of having their IT staff or their MSP just go ahead and take care of this as part of the upgrade process when they cycle through their machinery. It's more convenient because otherwise you got to get in the car, you got to spend the gas, the time, drive down there and deal with it, which I mean, I don't know when people are going to watch this, but I can tell you that right now in, August of 2022, the cost of gas, you probably pay more in gas to go to Best Buy than you would to pay to have this stuff recycled. So, it just depends on, where you're at and when you're doing it, but it probably makes sense just to have your MSP take care of it for you.
So if you've been throwing your laptop in the trash,
yeah,
that just sounds weird to even say. Throwing your laptop in the trash. Man, I don't think I've ever done that, but you're not supposed to do it. Now you know the right way to handle it.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to say there's a guy in Colorado Springs who took his desktop into the alley and shot it a couple of times, and then threw it away. So he committed 2 crimes. The funny part was the cops were like, I understand how you feel. But yeah, don't shoot your stuff and then throw it in the trash. Take it to the recycler and they'll shred it. And if maybe you can stand there and watch the shredding machine and you can get that joy of seeing it destroyed that way.
Also, shooting in an alley of a city, not a good idea. Not something that, not highly recommended. Anyway, but now we know what to do with our old electronic devices. So Travis, appreciate that. We're going to do a quick summary as we always do. Let's make IT simple. So 30 seconds or less. What should you do with your old, used, unwanted electronic devices?
So you can donate it. If you're going to do that, though, just make sure you don't have any sensitive data on there. You might want to pull the hard drive yourself or wipe it with some software. You can go down to Best Buy and they'll take care of it for free, but there's a limited amount that they'll take care of. Or you can go to a recycler. Just Google e-waste recycling in my area, find a recycler, and take it down there or have them pick it up. And lastly, give it to your MSP. Let them take care of it for you. They'll probably be happy to do it.